Hi, welcome back. Shane Simpson here with you from Ottawa, Canada. Let me turn those drums off. This is RutBuster 04, and I had some questions about, people had some questions about turnarounds. We ended RutBuster 03 with a neat little turnaround, and to further that, I'll do this in the key of G. So you can combine it with RutBuster 03. What we have here is a standard turnaround in a jazz blues, or even a lot of jazz standards will use this. The difference here is that the one chord here is going to be dominant. No big deal. You can switch that to major seventh if you're in more of a traditional jazz setting. The turnaround goes 1-6-2-5. Traditional turnaround is 1-6-2-5. We'll build on that, but 1-6-2-5. We spoke in that RutBuster 03 video that this is an important fingering for you. That G7, I called it a non-committal fingering. You'll see why that's important right now. That is G7. That's your root, your flat sevens, and your third. Don't want to get too deeply into that kind of stuff because it's a RutBuster video. It's supposed to be quick and dirty. G7, and the sixth, we're in the key of G, so the sixth of G is an E. We're going to go to an E7. We're treating that sixth chord dominant, and we'll talk more about that at some time in the future. G7. I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to drag him up 1, 2, 3 frets, and I'm going to put my ring finger right here on that E note. Get rid of that first finger. Don't need him anymore. And now I've got that kind of partial voicing here of an E7. What we have is an E, a G sharp, and a D. Function-wise, that's a root, that is a third, and a flat 7. So if I go right back to that G7th here, G7, I'm going to drag it up 1, 2, 3 frets, and put my root right there. And you can see middle and pinky, those are, I'll call them guide fingers. They haven't moved. They've dragged up, but they've stayed in the same kind of shape or position, like that. So the G7, going to E7, on. Now the 2 chord, remember this is a 1-6-2-5, 1-6-2-5 progression in the key of G. I'm going to go A7. It's going to be exactly the same as my G7 was here. So I'm going to drag this shape. I'm going to remove my ring finger, sorry, and drag that shape down 1 fret, and there's my root, A7. So middle and pinky again have stayed put. They've dragged down 1 fret, but they've stayed in the same shape. That's your 2 chord. Now again, the 2 chord in G is supposed to be minor 7th, but pretty standard to treat him as a dominant chord, meaning root 3-5 flat 7. Hey? And now we need a 5 chord. The 5 in the key of G is a D, so D7th in this case. And I am going to drag this middle and pinky package here down 1 fret and put my ring finger right there on that D. So the beauty of this is that middle and pinky have kind of stayed put. They're going to be dragging around. So in short here, slowly, we've got G7. And we're going to drag him up 1, 2, 3 frets. And I'm going to add my ring finger here to the E for an E7. Drag it down 1 fret and flip here. Put my first finger on the A. Drag it down 1 fret and go to that ring finger here on the D note. And back to G7 where we started. So in time, we've got here G7, E7, A7, D7, and back to G. Okay, we're going to build on this, so you got to get that down first. G7, E7, A7, D7, and G7. That's a 1-6-2-5 in the key of G. Okay, now where does that go? I'm going to approach from a half step above. Half step to the guitar player basically means 1 fret above. So I'm going to approach that guy. I'm going to approach that E7 coming up here by 1 fret above. So that'd be basically an F7 down to the E7. Now I'm splitting the bass note with my right hand. Bass note and chords. Sometimes they'll come together. They'll bass note and fingers, I'll call it. A thumb and fingers on the right hand will come together like that. They'll come together, or they'll be separate like that, depending how much time you have and tempo-wise, etc., how much walking you want to do. So we're adding walking bass here now. Back to G7, and I separated the bass from the chord there. Put the chord on the upbeat, meaning the inner part here with my fingers on the right hand. So I got bass, chord, and I'm going to run up 1 fret too high from that E7, go to an F7, play the bass note, then the chord, then head down to E7. So it's just 1 fret, heading back to your left there. So I go. Now I'm going to approach the A7 by a half a step, meaning 1 fret. Now that's a B flat going to the A. There we go. And I'm going to approach the D7 by half a step. There's your ring finger going on there on the E flat, half step above the D7. I'll approach the G7 by half step above. So here's an A flat and going to G7. So we've only got 2 chord shapes here, but watch out, it can get confusing. So going G7 up to an F7. down to 1 fret to your E7. Now flipping back to the other shape of B flat, 7th here. A7, and I'm going to approach the D7 by 1 fret above, or half step above, and then D7. Now I'm heading to G7, heading home here. I'm going to go A flat, G7. Only 2 shapes. So we're approaching each of our chords, our pertinent chords, by a half step above, which is 1 fret. Exactly the same shape. So if I take out the right hand confusion here, I'll go G7, F7, E7, B flat 7, A7, E flat 7, D7, A flat 7, G7. There we go. So now if I add walking bass to that, so a lot of the times I'm going bass chord. So that's thumb fingers, just your first 2 fingers in your right hand. I prefer finger style for this without a pick. I'm sure you could do it just as well with a pick. G7 again. I only play the bass note of the F7, although I am fingering the whole chord to approach the E7, but I'm only getting that bass note in. It just seems rushed. Or I could do this. I could play the whole chord in there as well. It's totally up to you, and do it lots of ways. Practice in real time and figure out what you can do, especially under duress when you're just learning them. You know, figure out what you can do, what you like. Here it would be with all thumb and fingers the entire time. That's kind of cool too, but I'll separate the bass here and there. I'll go. Sometimes coming in with the bass separate, sometimes coming in with bass and thumb and fingers at the same time. And again, just going. I think I got this originally from Joe Pass. I love Joe Pass. I absolutely love Joe Pass, the way you could just sit down as one guy and just tear that guitar apart. Just incredible player. So there we go. G7, F7, E7, B flat 7, A7, E flat 7, D7, A flat 7, G7. They're awful to say. A transcription, simpson.chain@gmail.com. Drop me an email, and until I get things up on the website, that's how we'll have to do it. But a lot of you have emailed for transcriptions. Happy to send them off to you until I can get to them a downloadable state. So there it is, starting from there. Now what if I do this? Just a second here. If I go to, I'm going to run to a G7 up here. That's that second fingering we had. So it's the same as our E7 was here on the 10th fret with the ring finger, the 9th fret with your middle finger, and the 10th fret with your pinky. That's a G7. That's kind of version of a G7th again. So G7, and I'll run up to this E7, which is the equivalent of our G7 down here, fingering wise, 12th fret. There we go. And here's your A7. This would be a 2 chord, then to a D7, and back to the G7. So that again is 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. So in time. So you've got 2 good business areas there to work out of. I could combine them too. I could go from this G7 to this E7, back to our normal thing here. G7, maybe I'll go G7, walk to that open E, the lowest note you can play on the guitar, boom. And I'll run up to this E7, I misfingered that, and then to this, or maybe instead of from this E7, I'll go to this A7. And then back to D7. Fingerings they're all over the place. Now, just one final thought here. G7 up there, which is literally 12 frets higher than our original G7. So there's your 1 chord, and I'll run to this E7 on the 12th fret, to an A7, run it right down. And it just gets longer and longer, right? So let me put the old trusty Beat Buddy on. This is a Jazz 1 medium swing here, if that's helpful to you, at 120 beats a minute. All right. Here it comes. A 1, 2, 3, straight up here. Again. Get your core chords down. Here's core chords. E7, A7, D7, G7, E7, A7. Now a half step approach from above. Separating fingers from thumb. Now we'll run up here to this G7 that we talked about. It's going G7, E7, and even And this guy up here, 12th fret G7, the equivalent of this guy, 12 frets higher. Big long run here. Low E. Oh, that brings me to a thought here. And sorry about this, you're supposed to be quick, I understand, but there's just always so much. You can also approach from a half step below. So we approached all of those from above. You can also approach from a half step, meaning one fret below. So we did all that from 1 fret above. Let's try below here very, very quickly. G7, I'm going to approach the E7 by 1 fret below. I changed my finger, I shouldn't do that. There's nothing wrong with it, but hey. Approaching the A7 by half step below. Approaching the D7 by half step below. So you could put any combination from above on some, below on others. Let me just jam a bit here, see what happens. Here it comes. 1, 2, 3 from below. Above. Some strange combination, who knows? They're all over the place, and we should talk further about. We're just playing those little guys, little chord shapes. They're really cool. I love them. They're kind of big bandy, non-committal. It's just all about being, not adding too many extensions or alterations to the chord. But we should at some point sit down G7 and extend those chords to full chords. Like 13th chords, 9th chords, sharp 5 chords. We've truncated now for now, but it's still a good thing. That was RutBuster number 4. I hope you've enjoyed that. Keep on emailing me. Again, if you're looking for a transcription to make life easier, it's simpson.shane@gmail.com until I get website stuff going on. I appreciate you coming back, and I really do appreciate your feedback. I'm glad you're enjoying these. And we'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.